All right, so Dishonored 2 also came out this week. People seem to like it. Caleb, you like Dishonored?
Oh, I do.
Yeah?
I really like
Yeah,
Dishonored.
you've played quite a bit of it now in your
I
PS4 Pro.
think I played about half of it, maybe.
You playing as Corvo or Emily?
My first playthrough, I'm playing Emily, and I'm doing Low Chaos. If you remember, Low Chaos was sort of the canon ending to the first game, and so I feel like that's the way you should.
Yeah.
And personally, that's the way I prefer to play those games. Right? I think that although there's some catharsis through just stabbing everyone in the face, I personally have more fun in video games being sneaky and finding paths. And
there's enough games where you have to play them as stabbing everyone in the face. So when a rare game does come along and allow you to not do that, you're like, well, I'll try that out.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about it, not just allowing you to not do that, just the level of freedom that it gives you in approaching all the situations is really, really cool. Like the first Dishonored, it's not an open world, right? It's still a level progression, but each level is this large, tall sandbox, so each one you go to a new one, and every time you get to a new area, I mean, for me, it's just been literally breathtaking when I realize how large they are and how many different ways you can go and what the approaches are. I mean, it's almost overwhelming at the beginning, right? Because there's also more guards in the first game because they can have more AI characters on the screen. So there's a lot going on. Last night, I finished the mission that was in the original reveal trailer. You remember she's like running down the hallway that's like morphing around her.
Oh,
towards
yeah.
the end.
It's like robots and stuff.
So yeah, you go to this Clockwork Mansion. I mean, early game spoilers.
Yeah.
You go to this Clockwork Mansion where the guy living there can pull a lever and reconfigure the rooms, and the environment's reconfiguring around you as you. It's so cool.
It's like the Winchester Mystery House, but it works kind of.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you can also end up backstage.
Yeah.
Like if the rooms are reconfiguring and you get between the rooms that are being reconfigured, you can actually get behind the mechanism.
It almost reminds me of like Portal, like when you're able to get into like behind
exactly. And so there's so many different ways to approach things, and it's really
they
cool.
do, like Arkane does such a good job of giving you this playground and being like, hey, if you think you can do something, you probably can. Like, I was talking to Mitch over the weekend. He was obsessed. He's been obsessed with this game. He's like absolutely burning through it. He loves the fact that like you said, it is these self-contained areas, but they are so dense, horizontally and vertically.
Yeah, that's the density.
Yeah. That like this game.
You say horizontally?
Yeah, horizontally.
That sounds like a RZA quote.
All right. Okay, you get Dr. Octopus snakes, you get horizontally. We'll make up our own language in time, it'll be good.
But that it is just really like it's almost like super it's going to be super replayable for a single player game, especially if you play through a second time as Corvo and you're in these similar scenarios, but you're like, well, I'm going to tackle this completely differently and have a completely different outcome.
Yeah. So is this the kind of game that, like, if you skip the first one, like Max and I did, can you just jump right in and start playing it, or do you feel like that's necessary homework?
You can absolutely jump in and start playing right away. I think, like most games where it's a direct story sequel, you'll get more if you've played the original. You can go to IGN.com and watch IGN's Dishonored in 5 minutes if you want to get caught up on the story, because that does a really good job of catching you up on the low chaos canon story of the first game, including a little bit of the 2 DLCs, which also do impact the story.
So my big issue with the first one, and the reason I couldn't get into it, is because, like you said, it's kind of overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
And the chaos thing really bugged me because it was like, I mean, obviously it's a score. Like I can if I'm having a bad time with a mission in a game, sometimes I'll just be like, screw it, and I'll just do a bad job and I'll move on. But the fact that kind of followed you through the game kind of became increasingly overwhelming for me. Like,
and that's one of my favorite parts about it, right? One of my favorite parts about Dishonored is that the story is impacted by player agency, and not just like a pick a choice. Like how you play impacts how the story plays out. And that's not just low chaos, high chaos. That's you could assassinate someone who's a main plot character and they won't show up later to do a certain thing. Basically the story is fully at your control. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah, people, it's almost more so than like a Telltale game. Whereas a Telltale game, you have these binary choices and you see the outcomes of them. Whereas this is very much, how you are choosing to play this game. You're going to get these very subtle touches where you're not even sure that you did get a different story thing until you start talking to someone else about it. And you're like, oh, that character was dead in my playthrough, so none of this ever happened.
Yeah, high chaos. Chaos isn't like you played the game wrong. It's you played it differently and got a different story. Yeah. Your Emily or Corvo is a mass murderer, and that's impacted throughout the story. It's not just you didn't lose.
That's excited to play more. What's your favorite new power?
I'm still upgrading them. And you know, the powers for Emily and Corvo are different. So far, all of my powers are new. The Shadow Walk's cool. I mean, it's basically just like an invisibility cloak thing. But the way that she turns in, like you get low to the ground, and it's kind of that like demonic, smoky hands.
Yeah.
And just the way that she crawls across the ground, it's just cool to see.
Yeah.
I think it's really awesome that you're like just doing this playthrough now, and you already know you're going to finish it and start it all over again with the other character.
Absolutely. I mean, Lucy, who reviewed it, played it through both ways as well. And I mean, just the replayability is.
Also, before we move on, what genre is this game? What genre is this world? What are you calling this world?
It's not a genre, right? I was trying to think of a descriptor earlier today. You know, I think the people tend to go towards steampunk for if they wanted to describe that world and that feel. Then there are the people who will get all angry and say that's not steampunk. So I think Reddit came to the conclusion that the correct term is whale punk. I'm kind of down with that. Like,
okay,
what other single descriptive word can you come up with that kind of describes that setting in that world?
Is it like nautical?
So yeah, it's highly nautical. It's it's whaling communities. There's the kind of mechanical clockwork aspect of that sort of gets steampunky.
Well, I remember like interviewing the Arkane guys ahead of Dishonored 1, and they were talking about how they kind of wanted steampunk, but they hated the overuse of like brass gears.
Yeah.
So it's kind of steampunk without brass almost.
I mean, there's magic and mysticism, but everything is, it's whale oil and electricity. And I love that world, though.
That's what bugs me is like, I respect everything about this game. I think it's like, I know that it's one of those just incredible games. It just didn't grab me, and I feel guilty about it, Like it's just...
Should think of the whale punks.
Yeah, no, I like it. They're like, what? I'm like, is this on Earth? And they're like, hell no.
I think the barrier to entry is like something like Dark Souls, right? In the sense that it's not a difficult game. You just have to be patient and learn the systems and kind of learn what's expected of you. Yeah. If you just run into every situation, you're gonna not have fun.